Hello everyone and welcome back to day 2 of my 30-day film challenge. That's right, I have made it to day 2, so we're already on a great start. The prompt for this one is a film you like that starts with the first letter of your name, and my name is Brad, so B. So I was kind of leaning towards one movie that is probably my favorite movie that starts with B. But there's another prompt later on in this 30-day thing that was like, that is perfect for that movie, so I'm going to hold off on that one. And instead I chose, as you saw from the title, Blade Runner 2049. And I did watch both Blade Runner movies yesterday. I watched both of them back to back. I've never actually done that before, which is really a really cool experience. And I'm one of those people that actually loves Blade Runner 2049 a million times more than Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a great movie. I bought it, I own it. I have the 4K version on digital, which is really cool. I got the 4K release of the original Blade Runner, and it's a really good movie. I'd honestly say it's probably a great movie, and it's a movie that every time I watch it, I gain more appreciation for it. I've probably only seen that movie maybe 3 times, so each time I watch it, I kind of warm up to it a little bit more. But it's a really slow movie, and both of them are very slowly and deliberately paced, and you can't really say that's a bad thing because that's definitely what it's going for. But for some reason, Blade Runner is just so much more. It just meanders so much more than Blade Runner 2049. And 2049, even though it's like 45 minutes longer, it feels so much shorter. And I don't know what about it. It flows so well. And I think it's because Blade Runner 2049 presents itself with a mystery. And that really kind of carries you through this entire journey. And it's a beautifully done movie. And of course, you have all the deep meanings behind it. And if you look at the original Blade Runner, it has a very simple premise with very, very complex themes. And that is what makes that movie so great. But what the sequel does is it takes those complex themes and it makes that the story. So I am going to give spoilers for this movie, for both of them really. And if you guys have not seen either of these movies, definitely go watch it. I think it's if you love film, Blade Runner is a must-watch. And if you love Blade Runner 2049, and even if you don't really like Blade Runner, I think Blade Runner 2049 is one of those movies that is just incredible. That everything about that movie is almost perfect. I think I have very few issues with that movie, but I am going to get into spoilers, so let's just jump right into this. The plot of Blade Runner 2049 is essentially Agent K, who is Ryan Gosling in this movie. He has a case that he's following up with. He's a Blade Runner. He hunts down replicants, and in this world, replicants were made as kind of slaves to humans to kind of do work off-world, and it's set in the future. But the best part about this movie in particular is it's not our future. Blade Runner was the future of that time that the movie was released. This movie doesn't take what it is today, because the original Blade Runner took place in 2019. This takes place in 2049, 30 years later. But it feels 30 years later in that world, not in our world, because at this point we are almost all digital nowadays. And back when Blade Runner was made, it was all analog. And so that future had the analog things with, the fancy screens and the holograms that you see in the original Blade Runner. But this movie takes that version of the world and upgrades it by 30 years, keeping that analog technology while also introducing some of our more, I don't want to say digital aspects of our world, because it has a lot more of that, but it still feels like Blade Runner, and that's what this movie does so brilliantly. And I think I would liken it to, or I guess I would liken Dr. Sleep to Blade Runner 2049 in the fact that they're both sequels like 30 years later after the movie came out, and they spend so much time developing that it's its own story. And then once you're invested in that story, then it pulls the rug out from under you, and then it gives you all this nostalgia and all the fan service that you wanted the entire time. Harrison Ford does not show up in the movie until an hour and 45 minutes into the film. And at that point, you still have an hour with him, and that is excellent. Everything up until that point, the story with Agent K and him discovering that, okay, we found these bones, and this bones died during childbirth. And those bones belong to a replicant. And so this idea that a replicant can give birth kind of warrants the replicants to feel like, okay, if we can make life, if we can create life, then we ourselves have a soul. And it's that idea that becomes so fascinating throughout the entire film that I think goes a step further than the original Blade Runner ever did. And I find that fascinating. Because like I said, this movie is a mystery. You're trying to figure out who these bones belong to, which you later find out that it's Rachel. From the original Blade Runner, and it's this mystery of who the child is, and Agent K is starting to believe that maybe he is that child, because he has these memories of this horse with that dates, the birth date of the child, and he has memories of hiding it, and he goes to that place, and he finds that horse, and he finds out that those memories were actually lived by a person. And so he's starting to believe that, okay, maybe my memories aren't implanted and maybe I actually did grow up. And it's really fascinating. And all the while you're introduced to Joy, played by Ana de Armas, so perfectly. I love her as an actress. She was great in Knives Out and Sergio just recently. She was obviously in this movie, and this was kind of her breakout role. I think maybe Knives Out is her like big star-breaking role, but this is one of the earliest things that I saw her in that really blew me away, because her character, she is mimicking what humanity is, right? She's saying everything that Kay wants to hear. That's kind of the whole aspect of that character, this hologram, I guess, companion that you can buy. And she is a she's the heart of the movie. And her relationship with Kay is excellent in the movie. But when she is destroyed at the end of or towards the end of the movie, and he goes and he sees that, okay, she was just saying everything that he wanted to hear, especially when you find out that he actually isn't the child. And when you build up all this anticipation and you dream about this one thing, and for a replicant, being able to dream about those things, about how that person might have a larger meaning, and maybe they do have a soul, and maybe they are here for greater reasons than just, being a replicant made to destroy other replicants and retire them. And that idea, when it all comes crumbling down towards the end of the movie for Kay, it's really fascinating to see him kind of at his lowest points and giving up almost. He almost gives up and just leaves and just stops fighting for what he believes in. And I think one of the biggest themes in this movie is dying for a good cause is the most human thing that you could ever do as a replicant. And so when he finally decides that he's going to go and he's going to save Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, from this new corporation that's trying to figure out how to make these replicants able to breed, because I forgot the name of the character, but Jared Leto's character he's manufacturing the replicants after the Weyland Corporation fell apart, and this is years later after the Blackout, which there's some awesome short films on YouTube that kind of bridge the gap between Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 that I highly recommend watching. They're really good. It kind of explores the Blackout and Jared Leto's character. And basically he wants to be able to breed the replicants so he can create more than anybody else has ever created. And he wants to, I don't know, he has a god complex to him, which I think Jared Leto as a person actually has, so he's perfect for the role. But it's such a fascinating story. And when Harrison Ford, with everything with him, is excellent. As soon as he pops up on screen, an hour and 45 minutes into the movie, you are just absolutely loving it. Because everything until then, you're enwrapped in this mystery and the intrigue. And then you get Harrison Ford and it gives you everything that you ever wanted from a Blade Runner sequel. With this philosophical conversation between Jared Leto's character and Harrison Ford on whether or not he is a replicant. And that mystery that has kind of enwrapped the fandom of Blade Runner for so long. And it never gives an answer for it, which is perfect. And I'm not here to try to give an answer for you guys if that's what you're looking for. I think it's so perfectly obscured and in mystery because it's kind of the intrigue of the entire series of it doesn't really matter whether or not he is human or a replicant. It's the fact that we're questioning it that means more than anything else could. I can go on and on about Blade Runner 2049 and Blade Runner. I love these movies. Blade Runner 2049, I think my only issues is that subgroup of replicants who kind of build up and kind of come out of nowhere. You're introduced to this one character early on. She's in the photo holding the child, and she pops up with a whole army, and they want to reveal that there was a replicant that gave birth to kind of set the world on fire and show that they are more than just what their creators created them for. And this whole subplot is interesting. It feels like the most exposition-y thing, and it's very necessary, but they just kind of come out of nowhere. And I kind of think maybe they were wondering if they could make a third one that could kind of explore this whole society that they have underground of replicants, but that's not something that we're ever going to get. So I feel like that aspect of the movie is what I'm least interested in, but that philosophical battle with Kay and the fact that he believes that he is a child, and when his thoughts and when his dreams fall apart, and him choosing to fight for what he believes in still, even after all of that, is what makes this movie very, very special. I love everything about this movie. I think tomorrow is going to be name a film that has 5 words in the title, and so that is going to be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I love that movie, everything about it, so I can't wait to talk about it tomorrow. So comment below what your guys' day 2 movie is, what the movie is that has the first letter of your name. I want to hear it, I want to know everything about it, so comment below, leave a like, do all the things, subscribe, and I hope to see you all in my next one.